What really happened when Wild West prostitutes got pregnant in Deadwood, South Dakota, 1876. A prostitute had a 1 in 3 chance of dying if she got pregnant. Not from childbirth, from what she had to do to avoid it. That's not a Hollywood exaggeration. That's frontier medicine. That's the documented reality of what happened when contraception didn't exist. Abortion was illegal, and a visible pregnancy meant immediate unemployment, eviction, and starvation. Here's what the movies don't show you. The moment a woman in a frontier brothel realized she was pregnant, she had maybe 12 weeks before her body would betray her. 12 weeks to find $5,200 for a back alley abortionist. 12 weeks to drink enough pennyroyal tea to destroy her liver. 12 weeks to throw herself down enough stairs that anything, would stop the pregnancy before the madam noticed, because once she started showing, she was done, fired, evicted, left to starve in the street or die, giving birth in an alley. The saloon girls in Western movies are beautiful, sassy, and somehow make it to the end credits. The real women, they died at an average age of 25. And if they got pregnant, that number dropped to 23. This isn't about morality, this is about mathematics, the brutal, documented math of frontier survival where pregnancy plus poverty equaled death, and every single option available led to the same outcome. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what happened in those 12 weeks. You're going to know what a back alley abortion looked like when there was no anesthesia and instruments weren't sterilized. You're going to know what happened to the babies who survived birth. And you're going to know why 60% of prostitute deaths in frontier towns were pregnancy-related. Because Hollywood won't tell you, but the historical record will. She checks again. 3 weeks late, then 4. She's standing in her crib in Dodge City, an 8-10-foot shack that smells like unwashed bodies, cheap perfume failing to cover sweat, and tobacco smoke soaked into the wooden walls. The piano from the saloon next door plays the same songs on repeat. Women cough in adjacent cribs. Bed frames creak on schedule. She checks again. The panic is immediate and absolute. Her mind starts calculating before the reality fully hits. She's been working 6 nights a week, sometimes 7. 10 customers on a good night, 6 on a slow one. The madam takes 60% of everything she earns. After 4 months of this, she has $73 saved. Her crib costs $15 per week to rent. Food costs another $6. Medicine for the burning when she urinates costs $4. She's saving maybe $12 per week if she's lucky and doesn't get sick. A back alley abortion costs $50 to $200. That's 4 weeks of savings at minimum, 20 weeks at worst. She has maybe 12 weeks before she shows. The math doesn't work. The math has never worked, but now it's a countdown to death instead of just slow exploitation. In 1876, there was no reliable contraception on the frontier. Women douched with carbolic acid that burned their insides. They inserted sponges soaked in whiskey or vinegar. They drank pennyroyal tea that tasted like poison, because it was poison. Nothing worked reliably. Everything damaged something. She's worked this crib for 11 months. She came here after her husband died in a mine collapse outside Virginia City. No family, no inheritance, no skills that frontier society valued. The madam offered her a crib and a 40% cut. It was this or starve. Now she's going to starve anyway. She can't tell the madam. The madam will evict her immediately. Can't tell the other women because word spreads and the madam finds out. Can't tell customers because they'll report her for trying to trap them into fatherhood. She's completely alone with this knowledge. The fear isn't abstract. She's seen this before. Mary, 2 cribs over, got pregnant 8 months ago, started showing at week 18. The madam threw her belongings into the street and had the marshal escort her to the town line. Mary's body was found 3 months later in an abandoned building. She'd given birth alone. The baby was found a few feet away, both dead. No investigation, no prosecution. The Frontier newspaper mentioned it in one sentence. Unknown woman found deceased. That's the future, unless something changes in the next 12 weeks. The pennyroyal tea tastes like bitterness, concentrated into liquid form. She drinks 1 cup, then another, then 4 cups in a single afternoon. The nausea hits within an hour. She vomits behind her crib, trying to stay quiet because the madam charges for lost work time. She has 3 customers scheduled before midnight. She drinks more tea. The old woman at the general store sold it to her with a knowing look and no questions. $2 for a bag that should last a month. She's gone through it in 3 days. Her hands shake. Her vision blurs at the edges. The ringing in her ears competes with the piano music. Nothing happens. The pregnancy continues. Week 5. Tansy oil. The burning starts in her throat and doesn't stop. She can taste it in the back of her mouth for 2 days. Her skin turns yellow. She vomits blood into a chamber pot and hides it from the madam. Still nothing. Week 6. Turpentine. 3 tablespoons mixed with whiskey to hide the taste. The chemical burn travels down her throat and into her stomach. She vomits so hard she breaks blood vessels in her eyes. The pregnancy continues. She's still working. 6 customers last night. 8 the night before. She smiles when they want her to smile. She moans when they expect her to moan. Between customers, she runs behind the building and vomits burning liquid that used to be her stomach lining. One customer notices she's lost weight. He complains to the madam that she's not as soft as before. The madam warns her that complaints affect earnings. Week 7. Physical trauma. She throws herself down the stairs from the brothel's 2nd floor, once, twice, 5 times in 3 days. The bruising covers her ribs and thighs. She tells customers she fell. They don't care as long as she can still work. The impact rattles her bones. She tastes blood where she's bitten through her tongue, trying not to scream. The pain radiates through her abdomen for hours after each fall. Nothing changes. The pregnancy continues. She pays another prostitute $2 to kick her in the stomach, hard, repeatedly. The woman does it. She's been pregnant twice herself. Both times ended in back-alley abortions. Both times she nearly died. She kicks hard enough to leave boot prints in the bruising. The pregnancy continues. Week 8. She's drinking quinine in doses that make her ears ring constantly. The visual disturbances start, shadows moving at the edge of her vision that aren't there. She can't sleep, can't eat. The convulsions start small, fingers twitching, then spread to her whole body. She works through it. 7 customers tonight, 10 tomorrow. Week 9. She's lost 12 pounds. The madam is starting to notice. The other women are starting to whisper. The pregnancy continues. She has maybe 6 weeks left before her body gives her away completely. The whispers lead her to a shack on the edge of town. Not a doctor's office, not even a midwife's home. Just a shack that smells like carbolic acid and old blood. The woman who answers is maybe 50, maybe 70. Hard to tell on the frontier where age and hardship blur together. How far along? 10 weeks, maybe 11. $200. She has $68 left after the pennyroyal tansy, turpentine, and quinine, after paying the other prostitute to kick her, after missing work from vomiting. I have 70, the woman considers. 70 now, 70 more in 3 weeks, or I report you to the marshal for theft. There's no negotiation, no sympathy. This is business. She hands over everything she saved in 11 months of brutal work. The procedure is scheduled for Thursday. She works Monday through Wednesday. 18 customers in 3 days. She needs the money for the second payment. Thursday arrives. The room is filthy, lit by a single oil lamp that creates more shadows than light. There's a table covered with a sheet that was white once, maybe months ago. The instruments are laid out on a towel. Knitting needles, crochet hooks, a catheter tube, forceps that look like they came from a veterinarian's bag. The smell hits her first. Carbolic acid trying to mask the smell of blood and vomit from the last woman who was on this table. From all the women who've been on this table. Drink. Whiskey. The only anesthesia available. She drinks until she chokes. Drinks until the room spins. It's not enough. It's never enough. Bite this. A leather strap, stained and worn from other women's teeth. The woman doesn't wash her hands, doesn't sterilize the instruments beyond wiping them with a rag. Germ theory won't reach the frontier for another decade. The insertion begins. The pain is immediate and beyond anything the whiskey can touch. It's not sharp, it's deep, wrong, a violation of internal spaces that were never meant to be reached this way. She bites down on the leather strap. The screaming still escapes, muffled but not silenced. The woman works for 30 minutes, 40, an hour. The blood starts almost immediately, more than expected, always more than expected. The instruments are unwashed, unsterilized, and pushed into places they're not designed to go. The woman works with the confidence of repetition, but without the knowledge of actual medicine. She's not a doctor. She's just someone willing to do this for money. The pain doesn't stop. It changes quality, sharp, then burning, then a deep wrongness that radiates through her entire abdomen. Finally, done. You'll bleed for a few days. Fever is normal. If it gets too high or the bleeding doesn't stop, there's nothing more I can do. No instructions, no follow-up care, no emergency plan. She pays the second $70 she doesn't have. The woman accepts it knowing she'll never see the third payment. The walk back to her crib takes an hour. It should take 10 minutes. She stops every few yards to lean against buildings, to wait for the pain to recede enough that she can move again. She's bleeding heavily. The rags she stuffed between her legs are already soaked through. The fever starts within 3 hours. By midnight, she's at 102 degrees. By morning, 104. The infection is already spreading. The unwashed instruments, the unsterilized needles, the hands that reeked of whiskey and touched her cervix without even being rinsed first. Puerperal fever starts fast and kills faster. She has two choices: work through it or admit what happened and get evicted. She works. 5 customers over 2 days. She can barely stand. The fever makes everything shimmer and shake. She changes the blood-soaked rags between customers and hopes they don't notice. One notices, complains to the madam about the smell. The madam notices everything. Week 14. The fever hits 106. She's delirious, convulsing. The infection has spread through her uterus, into her abdomen, into her blood. There's no medical care available for a prostitute dying of abortion complications. The frontier doctors refuse to treat that kind of woman. The hospitals don't admit them. The churches pray for their souls, but offer no actual help. She dies in her crib on a Tuesday afternoon. Alone, except for the woman in the next crib, who hears the final sounds and doesn't call for help, because what help is there? The madam rents the crib to a new woman on Wednesday. The body is buried in Potter's Field on Thursday. No marker, no name, no investigation. The Frontier newspaper doesn't mention it, but let's say the abortion failed. Let's say she survives the procedure, survives the infection, but the pregnancy continues. Week 16, she's starting to show. Just a slight curve to her abdomen that the madam notices immediately. She's fired that afternoon, evicted that evening. Her belongings, 2 dresses, a shawl, a hairbrush, are thrown into the street. She has no money. The abortion took everything. She has no family, no friends, no husband. No skills that frontier society values beyond the one she can no longer perform. She's 4 months pregnant, homeless, and starving. Week 20, she's begging on the streets. Respectable citizens cross to the other side. Women teach their children to spit at her. The churches she approaches tell her this is divine punishment and turn her away. She tries to find work as a laundress. The women hiring take one look at her condition and slam doors. She steals food, gets caught. The marshal warns her that next time it's jail. Week 24. She's sleeping in an abandoned building on the edge of town. No heat, no food. The pregnancy is visible now, impossible to hide. She hasn't eaten in 3 days. The baby moves inside her and she hates it because it's killing her, and she hates herself for hating it. Week 32. Labor starts on a Sunday morning. She's alone in the abandoned building. No midwife, no assistance, no pain relief of any kind. The labor lasts 14 hours. The pain is beyond description, beyond anything the folk remedies or the abortion procedure prepared her for. It's her body trying to push out something it's not strong enough to deliver while she's starving and dehydrated and dying. The hemorrhaging starts at hour 10, blood soaking through everything, no way to stop it, no help coming. Hour 14, the baby is born. The hemorrhaging doesn't stop. She has maybe an hour left, maybe less. The baby is alive, making sounds. She has no way to feed it, no milk because she's been starving, no money for a wet nurse, no family to take it. She has two choices, and both end in death. Keep the baby. They both die of starvation within days. Abandon the baby. The baby dies. She might survive another week or month before starvation or exposure or violence takes her anyway. She makes the choice that thousands of frontier women made. The choice that sounds unthinkable until you understand that there was no third option. She leaves the baby in the building and walks away. The baby is found 2 days later, dead from exposure. The Frontier newspaper mentions it in half a sentence. Infant found deceased. No investigation, no prosecution. When the mother is a prostitute, infanticide isn't even considered a crime worth pursuing. She survives another 3 weeks, dies of exposure during a cold snap, found in an alley, buried in Potter's Field. No name, no marker, no record except a brief mention in the marshal's logbook. This wasn't random tragedy. This was systematic murder created and enforced by every level of frontier society. The economic system made pregnancy fatal. Prostitution was often the only option for women without husbands, family, or socially valuable skills. The frontier had sex ratios of 10 to 20 men for every woman in mining camps. The demand for prostitutes was constant. The supply was exploited completely. Madams and pimps controlled everything: earnings, housing, survival itself. The financial math made pregnancy impossible to survive. A prostitute earned $10 per customer. The madam took 50–70%. That left maybe $30–50 per week. Cost of living, $15–20 per week minimum just for the crib and food. Savings rate, $10–20 per week if nothing went wrong. Cost of abortion, $50–200. That's 5–20 weeks of savings. And pregnancy gave them 12 to 16 weeks before they showed and lost everything. The math didn't work. The math was designed not to work. Madams created debt bondage. Women who tried to leave were tracked down, beaten, or killed. Town marshals and sheriffs were paid off to ignore prostitute deaths. The frontier legal system treated prostitutes as non-citizens. They couldn't testify against respectable men. They had no legal protection against violence, theft, or murder. Pregnancy meant immediate unemployment and immediate eviction. Zero income while facing starvation. No family support networks in transient frontier communities. No savings because the system extracted everything. The economic trap was absolute. The social system actively killed pregnant prostitutes. Churches refused all assistance to fallen women, viewed pregnancy as divine punishment, actively campaigned to run prostitutes out of town, blocked any attempts to create aid societies, taught children that prostitutes deserved whatever happened to them. Respectable frontier women enforced this brutally. Many were former prostitutes themselves who had married up and needed to protect their precarious social status. They refused employment to known prostitutes, reported them to marshals for vagrancy, turned away pregnant women begging for help or food. The medical establishment participated in the killing. Most frontier doctors refused to treat prostitutes entirely. Those who would charge double or triple their normal rates. Abortion was illegal in most territories after the 1860s, 1870s. Doctors who performed abortions risked prosecution, so they refused. No prenatal care was available even for women who wanted to carry to term. Hospital births were for respectable women only. A pregnant prostitute couldn't get medical care at any price. Foundling homes and orphanages barely existed. Most frontier towns had none. The few that existed in larger cities like Denver or San Francisco had waiting lists months long and refused babies from prostitutes. The entire social structure was designed to ensure one outcome: death. The racial hierarchy multiplied every horror. Chinese prostitutes were controlled by tongs, criminal organizations that owned them completely. They were smuggled to San Francisco and other frontier cities, with their families held as collateral in China. Escape was impossible. They worked in the worst cribs, 4 or 6 foot cells that were barely large enough to lie down in. Life expectancy, 19-22 years. When they got pregnant, forced abortions were routine, performed by Tong doctors with even less training than the white back-alley abortionists. The survival rate was lower. The babies who survived birth were usually killed immediately or sold. The Tongs didn't lose money on pregnancy downtime. Mexican prostitutes worked in segregated red light districts with the worst conditions. They faced additional violence and discrimination, received even less medical care than white prostitutes. When pregnant by white customers, the babies were abandoned at higher rates because mixed-race children had no place in frontier racial hierarchies. Black prostitutes faced the most violence and the least protection. Post-Civil War freedom meant economic desperation for many. Frontier prostitution was one of the few options available. They faced the most violent customers with zero legal protection. They earned the least in the hierarchy. They were completely excluded from any charitable organizations that might have helped. Their maternal and infant mortality rates were the highest. The historical record barely acknowledges they existed. The medical reality was a nightmare beyond Hollywood's imagination. Germ theory didn't exist on the frontier. There was no understanding that dirty instruments caused infection. Doctors didn't wash their hands between patients. Instruments were reused without sterilization. Puerperal fever, infection after birth or abortion, killed 30 to 40% of women who survived the initial procedure. The symptoms: fever, chills, abdominal pain, then delirium and death within days. No treatment existed. Women died screaming in agony or unconscious from fever. The tools of abortion: knitting needles that perforated the uterus and caused massive internal bleeding, crochet hooks that tore the cervix and led to hemorrhage, catheter tubes that introduced infection directly, coat hangers in later periods with the same catastrophic results. Slippery elm bark was inserted to dilate the cervix. Sometimes it worked, usually it caused infection. The success rate for frontier abortions was maybe 50-60%. But the survival rate was only 70-80%. That means 20-30% of women who attempted abortion died from the attempt. The poisons women drank were just as deadly. Pennyroyal caused seizures and liver failure. Tansy destroyed the liver and caused bleeding from every orifice. Turpentine created chemical burns throughout the digestive tract. Strychnine caused violent convulsions and suffocation. Ergot constricted blood vessels and caused gangrene. The dosage required to potentially induce miscarriage was often enough to kill the mother. No anesthesia existed beyond whiskey, no blood transfusions, no antibiotics, no emergency surgery. Women died in agony and terror with no medical intervention possible. The infanticide reality is what Hollywood will never show. Abandoned babies were found dead in outhouses, alleys, and trash heaps regularly in every frontier town. Frontier newspapers occasionally reported them with dismissive single sentences. There was no investigation, no prosecution. It was viewed as solving a problem. The babies who were found alive rarely survived orphanage conditions when orphanages even existed. Active infanticide was common. Suffocation immediately after birth was the most common method. The mother would simply not allow the baby to breathe. exposure to elements, leaving the baby outside in winter or summer, drowning in water troughs or creeks, strangulation. When the mother was a prostitute, prosecution was rare. Even when prosecutors tried, juries wouldn't convict. It was seen as mercy given the alternative life that baby would face. The choice was impossible. Keep the baby and both die of starvation within months. Abandon the baby dies, but the mother might survive another week or month. There was no third option, no charity, no adoption system, no foundling homes in most towns, no wet nurses for a prostitute's baby, no economic path to survival. Thousands of women made the choice that breaks modern hearts. They made it because every alternative was death. The psychological toll was catastrophic. Suicide among prostitutes who survived childbirth was common. Hanging, laudanum overdose, drowning. The trauma of making that choice and living with it was unbearable. The rare exceptions prove how absolute the system was. Maybe 1 in 100 pregnant prostitutes found a way out. It required hidden pregnancy, sympathetic employer, and geographic luck all at once. Some married customers who didn't know about the pregnancy. A tiny number found work as cooks or laundresses on remote ranches where their past could be hidden completely. It required lying about everything, hiding the pregnancy through binding and loose clothing, never admitting the past, living in constant fear of discovery. The orphan trains started in eastern cities in the 1850s, 1860s. They rarely reached frontier towns. They even more rarely accepted babies born to prostitutes. Of the babies they did accept, the survival rate was still only about 50%. Foundling homes existed in only the largest frontier cities, Denver, San Francisco, maybe a few others by the 1880s. They had waiting lists months or years long. They accepted almost no babies from prostitutes. The mortality rate in the homes themselves was 40 to 50% in the first year. Survival required miraculous coincidence and exceptional luck. For 99% of pregnant prostitutes, there was no way out. So next time you see a Western movie where the saloon girl is beautiful, sassy, and survives until the end credits, remember this. In Virginia City, Nevada, in the 1870s, the red light district buried 3 to 4 prostitutes per month. Dodge City records show 60% of prostitute deaths were pregnancy-related. Tombstone, Arizona had no orphanage. Abandoned babies were found dead regularly and buried without investigation. Denver's Holiday Street red light district had a baby graveyard behind the cribs. Modern archaeological excavations have found it. Tiny bones in shallow graves, no markers, no records. The women who died weren't tragic heroes. They were economic refugees in a system designed to kill them. Widows, orphans, women fleeing domestic violence, women with no other options in a society that offered them none. What changed? Medical advances came 50, 100 years after the Wild West era ended. Anesthesia, antiseptic technique, antibiotics. The understanding of germ theory that would have saved thousands of lives. Legal changes, abortion legalization, contraception access, women's economic options, social safety nets. All of these came long after the frontier closed. The historical record is sparse because these women were erased deliberately, potter's field graves with no markers, frontier newspaper archives with brief dismissive mentions, official records that treated prostitute deaths as unremarkable, but the evidence exists. Cemetery records, archaeological excavations, medical journals from frontier doctors, personal letters. The bodies keep being found. An estimated 30,000, 50,000 prostitutes worked the frontier between 1865 and 1890. If the mortality rate from pregnancy was 25–35%, that means 7 to 500, 17 to 500 women dead. Nearly 100% of babies abandoned or born to destitute mothers died. We're talking about a hidden genocide driven by economics and social cruelty. Thousands of women dead. Tens of thousands of babies killed through abandonment, exposure, or active infanticide. The frontier killed them as surely as any gunfight. More surely, because gunfights were at least acknowledged. These weren't statistics. They were women with names, hopes, and impossible choices. Women who tried everything to survive and died anyway. Women who made choices that seem unthinkable until you understand that every alternative was death. The frontier didn't give them a choice. The economic system didn't give them a choice. The social system didn't give them a choice. The medical system didn't give them a choice. History remembers the gunfighters and forgets the women who died screaming in back rooms, forgets the babies left in outhouses, forgets the thousands of unmarked graves behind red light districts across the West. If this shattered your image of the Wild West, hit that like button. Subscribe for more historical reality checks that Hollywood won't show you. Comment below, what shocked you the most about this reality? What other Wild West myths should we destroy next? Because the Old West wasn't won by cowboys and outlaws. It was built on the bodies of women who never had a choice.